You finally did it. You looked someone in the eye, perhaps a boss, a parent, or a close friend, and you said the hardest word in your vocabulary. You said no. You declined the extra project. You turned down the invitation to the event you did not want to attend. You told your partner that you needed space. You read the books and watched the videos that told you this was the healthy thing to do. You expected to feel empowered. You expected to feel a sense of relief and strength washing over you because you finally stood up for yourself. But that is not what happened. Instead, as soon as the conversation ended, you felt a pit form in your stomach. Your heart started racing. A wave of nausea washed over you. You began to replay the interaction in your mind, analyzing your tone of voice, wondering if you were too harsh or if you sounded mean. You might have even felt the urge to pick up the phone and call them back, just to apologize or to take it all back. You are not feeling strong. You are lying awake at 2 a.m., wondering if you are a terrible, selfish person. This specific physiological and emotional crash is what we call the boundary hangover. And if you are feeling it right now, it is important to know that you are not broken. You are not doing it wrong. In fact, this terrible feeling might actually be proof that you are finally doing something right. To understand why this happens, we have to look beyond logic and into the nervous system. Logically, you know that you have the right to your own time and energy. You know that you are an adult who is allowed to make choices. But your nervous system often operates on an outdated set of instructions, usually written in childhood. For many people, especially those who struggle with people-pleasing, early survival depended on compliance. When you were young, your safety and your supply of love often depended on being good, being easy, and not causing trouble. In that developmental context, saying no to a caregiver or an authority figure was not just an expression of preference, it was a risk. It risked anger, withdrawal of affection, or rejection. To a child, rejection feels like a life-threatening event. So your brain wired a very strong association. Compliance equals safety, and autonomy equals danger. When you set a boundary as an adult, even though you are safe and independent, your amygdala, the threat detection center of your brain, fires the same alarm bells it would have fired when you were 5 years old. It perceives your act of self-protection as an act of aggression that will lead to abandonment. The boundary hangover is essentially a panic attack about separation. This is why the feeling is so visceral. It is not just a thought. It is a physical sensation of dread. You are fighting against years of emotional conditioning that taught you that your value lies in your utility to others. When you remove that utility by saying no, your internal system screams that you have violated the social contract and that punishment is coming. This is why you feel guilty. It is not a moral guilt, which tells us we have violated our values. It is a neurotic guilt, which tells us we have violated a pattern of submission. You can recognize this hangover by observing how you behave in the minutes and hours after you set a limit. One of the most common symptoms is the urge to over-explain. You simply cannot leave the no hanging in the air. You feel a compulsion to offer a paragraph of justification. You might invent excuses that sound better than the truth. You might lie and say you have a headache or a prior engagement because simply not wanting to do something does not feel like a valid enough reason to exist. You are trying to soften the blow to manage the other person's reaction, hoping that if you provide enough evidence, they will give you permission to have your boundary. Another common pattern is the checking in text. Let's say you told a friend you could not help them move this weekend. An hour later, you might text them a joke, or ask a random question, or send a series of heart emojis. You are not actually checking in, you are temperature checking. You are fishing for reassurance that the relationship is still intact. You are trying to soothe your own anxiety by ensuring they aren't mad at you. If they reply with a short answer, you might spiral into catastrophic thinking, convinced that you have ruined the friendship forever. Then there is the replay loop. This usually happens at night. You go over the script of what you said again and again. You edit the footage in your mind to make yourself look like the villain. You strip away the context, the fact that you are exhausted or that they have asked too much of you, and you focus entirely on the moment you refused. You convince yourself that you were cold, ungrateful, or rude. This rumination is your brain's way of trying to find the error so it can fix it and restore the feeling of safety that comes from being compliant. It is crucial to dismantle a major myth here. We often believe that if we feel guilty, it must mean we have done something wrong. We treat feelings as facts. If I feel bad, I must be bad. But in the context of psychological growth, feelings are not always facts. Sometimes they are just echoes. The guilt you feel after setting a healthy boundary is not a sign that you have harmed someone. It is a sign that you have disappointed someone. Those are two very different things. We are allowed to disappoint people. We are allowed to be inconvenient. The guilt is simply the sensation of your old programming clashing with your new behavior. It is growing pains. So, how do we treat this boundary hangover? The first step is to stop trying to fix the feeling. When the wave of nausea and panic hits, our instinct is to make it stop, usually by retracting the boundary and saying yes after all. Do not do that. Instead, try using a tool we can call the Hangover Log. When the guilt hits, treat it like a weather event. Observe it with curiosity rather than judgment. Note when it starts. Rate its intensity. Write down the physical sensations. My chest is tight. My stomach is churning. And then, just watch it. You will notice something important if you just observe it without acting on it. It changes. It peaks, and then it subsides. Most boundary hangovers have a shelf life of about 24 to 48 hours. If you can white-knuckle your way through that window without apologizing or taking it back, the feeling will pass on its own. You are building tolerance. You are teaching your nervous system that you can withstand the discomfort of someone else's disappointment and survive. Every time you ride out a hangover without caving, you are rewiring that childhood association. You are proving to your brain that autonomy is actually safe. Another helpful framework is distinguishing between clean pain and dirty pain. This is a concept often used in acceptance and commitment therapy. Clean pain is the natural discomfort of the situation. It is the awkwardness of the moment you said no. It is the sadness that you cannot do everything for everyone. That pain is real, but it is manageable. Dirty pain is the suffering we create by the stories we tell ourselves about that pain. It is the voice that says, I am a bad friend. They will hate me. I will end up alone. The boundary hangover is mostly dirty pain. It is the narrative of self-hatred that piles on top of the simple reality of a refusal. Your job is to drop the story. Acknowledge the clean pain. It feels awkward to say no, but refuse to engage with the dirty pain. When the thought comes up that you are selfish, label it as just a thought and let it pass. You do not have to argue with it. You just have to refuse to buy it. Finally, you can use a mantra to anchor yourself during the storm. A powerful one is this: discomfort is the price of admission to a new life. You are buying your freedom, and the currency is this temporary guilt. You are buying a life where you are not exhausted, resentful, and used up. The cost of that life is having to tolerate the feeling of being bad for a little while. It is a price worth paying. If you are currently in the thick of a boundary hangover, take a deep breath. Do not send that apology text. Do not offer to do just a little bit of the thing you refused. Go make a cup of tea. Distract yourself. Be kind to yourself as you would to someone recovering from a physical illness. You are recovering from a lifetime of self-abandonment. It is going to hurt a little bit as the feeling comes back into your limbs. Remember that the goal of setting boundaries is not to feel good instantly. The goal is to be respected and to respect yourself. The relief will come later. The peace will come when you realize that your relationships can survive your honesty. And if a relationship cannot survive your honesty, if it collapses the moment you stop over-functioning, then that relationship was not built on connection. It was built on your submission. As you move forward, ask yourself this simple question: what if this guilt isn't evidence that I am wrong, but evidence that I am finally changing? The hangover will fade, but the space you are clearing for yourself will remain.